1997 saw the release of hit films such as Titanic, Good Will Hunting, Donnie Brasco, The Fifth Element, Starship Troopers, As Good as It Gets, Austin Powers, Jackie Brown, Men in Black, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Lost Highway, Batman and Robin, and LA Confidential. In music, we saw the release of hit albums such as The Color and the Shape by the Foo Fighters, OK Computer by Radiohead, The Fat of the Land by The Prodigy, Life After Death by Notorious B.I.G., The Art of War by Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, Album of the Year by Faith No More, No Way Out by Puff Daddy and the Family, Wu-Tang Forever by the Wu-Tang Clan, Nimrod by Green Day, and Around the Fur by the Deftones. On television, we saw the debuts of King of the Hill, South Park, Oz, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Just Shoot Me, Daria, Todd McFarlane's Spawn, Johnny Bravo, Behind the Music, Ally McBeal, Dharma and Greg, and Bear in the Big Blue House. But all this paled in comparison to what was happening in the World Wrestling Federation. Despite being on the losing end in the Monday Night War, the WWF experienced a creative renaissance, changing the content of their program to a more risque tone. We saw the rise of Attitude, with Stone Cold Steve Austin emerging as a huge star. But the year will forever be remembered for the most controversial match in professional wrestling history, and the aftermath that forever changed the landscape of the game. Join us on this trip as we journey back to 1997. The WWF made a bold statement at the start of the year with their new syndicated program, Shotgun Saturday Night. With the bare bones appearance and edgier content, the company was only beginning to embrace its attitude. The debut episode emanated from the Mirage nightclub in New York. Todd Pettingill was the host, with Vince McMahon and Sonny providing commentary amongst the sea of fans. Mr. Bob Backlund took to the streets and urged the fans not to attend this event, which he deemed morally wrong. Back inside, Goldust faced the Sultan and had a secret weapon in his corner. Just when all hope looked lost for the Bizarre One, his manager Marlena climbed onto the apron. She proceeded to take off her top, distracting the Sultan and everybody else within eye's range. The adult-oriented content continued the following week, with Sunny revealing her very own sex tape with Elmo. The night before the Royal Rumble, Shotgun Saturday Night took place at Denim and Diamond in San Antonio, Texas. A Rumble surprise couldn't wait and took over the show. That man was the hardcore legend Terry Funk. The Funker was ready to rumble and issued an open challenge. Never one to back down from a challenge, Stone Cold Steve Austin hit the ring, brawling with Funk all over the bar. Austin would later face Goldust, which ended in a disqualification when Funk returned and attacked Stone Cold. The January 25th Shotgun took place at Webster Hall in New York. Two future Hall of Famers clashed, with Bret the Hitman Hart and Mankind brawling everywhere but the ring. Owen Hart would eventually cause a disqualification, while Mankind couldn't help but mingle with the cage dancers. The most famous moment in Shotgun history took place on February 8th from Penn Station. It would be the final night of the unique concept, with future episodes taped before Raw in traditional arenas. They undoubtedly went out with a bang, as The Undertaker faced off against Hunter Hearst Helmsley. In typical Shotgun style, the two brawled amongst the fans. They'd battle all the way to the top of an escalator, with Undertaker hitting Helmsley with a huge tombstone. An unconscious Helmsley took a ride down the escalator, with Undertaker standing tall. WWF Champion Psycho Sid attacked another member of the Lothario family on the January 6th Monday Night Raw. Pete Lothario, the son of Jose Lothario, was the invited guest of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. As soon as HBK left his side, Sid attacked, powerbombing Lothario onto a table. The already bitter feud now had HBK seething en route to the Royal Rumble showdown. In front of his hometown crowd of San Antonio, packed inside the Alamo Dome, HBK finally got his hands on Sid. Sid was no match for HBK's rage, feeling the wrath of a multi-$1,000 camera. Sweet chin music sealed the deal, and HBK was once again the WWF Champion. The 30-man Royal Rumble match ended in controversy. Stone Cold Steve Austin withstood most of the competition until he was eliminated by Bret the Hitman Hart. However, the referees were busy trying to separate Mankind and Terry Funk. Austin's elimination wasn't official, and he snuck back in to eliminate The Undertaker, Vader, and Hart to win the Rumble match. Frustrated, Bret shockingly quit the company the following night. WWF Commissioner Gorilla Monsoon ruled that a match would take place at the February 16th In Your House Final Four. 4 men would start, with eliminations occurring via pinfall, submission, or by throwing your opponent over the top rope and to the floor. Whoever was declared the winner would receive a WWF Championship match at Wrestlemania 13. The participants were named Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Vader, and Bret the Hitman Hart if he chose to return. Hart accepted, but the stakes were about to be raised. On the February 13th Thursday Raw Thursday, WWF Champion the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels claimed he'd lost his smile. He announced an indefinite hiatus and surrendered his title to Gorilla Monsoon. The winner of the Fatal 4-Way would now become the new champion. The epic bout saw the Rumble winner eliminated first, with Bret throwing Austin over the top rope and to the floor. The Undertaker bloodied Vader, kicking a steel chair into his face. Vader held his own, with blood pouring down his face, until Taker eventually sent him flying over the top rope. Hart and Taker jockeyed for position in a nail-biter of a finisher. Out of nowhere, Hart clotheslined Taker over the top rope and to the floor. For the 4th time, Bret the Hitman Hart was the WWF Champion. Waiting in the wings was Psycho Sid, who'd receive his title shot the following night on Monday Night Raw. The bout was meant to open Raw, but was ruined by Stone Cold, who attacked both competitors. After another false start, the match finally happened to close out the show. A relentless Austin once again interfered, clobbering Hart on the back with a chair. This gave Sid the advantage, hitting his patented powerbomb on Hart and reclaiming the WWF Championship. On March 10th, Monday Night Raw was rebranded as Raw is War. There was now a giant entrance screen known as the Titantron that hung above a large stage with a long steel ramp that led to the ring. The show's new theme music was shock rocker Marilyn Manson's hit, The Beautiful People. It was announced that Bret Hart and Steve Austin would face off in a submission match at WrestleMania 13. On the March 10th Monday Night Raw, Jim Ross interviewed the special guest referee for the bout, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Both Hart and Austin talked a good game, but there'd be no messing around with Shamrock. Meanwhile, The Undertaker was named the #1 contender to Psycho Sid's championship. The two were forced to coexist on the March 10th Monday Night Raw, battling Vader and Mankind. Sid and Taker ended up brawling with one another, with Sid eventually powerbombing Taker. This allowed Vader to cover the dead man and score a victory. On the March 17th Monday Night Raw, Bret Hart would receive one more title shot against Psycho Sid inside of a steel cage. Both Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker were waiting in the wings. An interesting dynamic was created as Austin came out to aid Hart. If Hart were to win, the Hart-Austin submission match at WrestleMania 13 would then become a championship match. Undertaker came to the aid of Sid, seeing as this was his title shot at stake. Things quickly got out of hand, with The Undertaker slamming the cage door on Hart's face. This allowed Sid to escape the cage and retain his championship. Following the match, Vince McMahon tried to interview Hart about what had just occurred. Hart shoved Vince to the mat and began to cut a profanity-laced promo decreeing injustice within the promotion. He claimed that he was being screwed and management wasn't doing anything about it. This brought out Sid, Austin, and The Undertaker, with a giant brawl erupting. Officials tried to stop the madness, with the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels walking out to join the fray as the show went off the air. The submission match between Bret the Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 is considered one of the greatest matches of all time. Ken Shamrock played the role of an impartial referee and allowed the action to flow freely. An Austin 316 sign shattered in the entrance, with Austin walking over the broken glass. He immediately got in referee Shamrock's face, who didn't back down. Fireworks went off for the entrance of Hart. The match began right off the bat, with Austin charging at Hart, taking him to the mat. They rolled around, brawling with one another to the floor, where they brawled some more. The fight went into the crowd, with Shamrock following the action amongst the sea of fans. Hart dragged Austin up into the stands, battering him before the crowd. Austin staggered back through the crowd, with Hart chasing after. Finally back ringside, Austin reversed an Irish whip, sending Hart crashing into the steel steps. Hart slowly rose to his feet and turned around, right into a flying clothesline by Austin. Back in the ring, Hart gained the advantage and began to hone in on the injured left knee of Austin. Austin battled back and nailed a Stone Cold Stunner, which unfortunately wouldn't do him any good with it being a submission match. Hart fought back, further attacking the knee. It wasn't long before Hart slapped a figure 4 on Austin around the ring post, with Austin screaming in agony. Shamrock consulted with Austin, who didn't give up. Hart introduced a chair, wrapping it around Austin's ankle just as Stone Cold had done to Brian Pillman. As Hart climbed to the top rope, Austin sprung to his feet. He wailed Hart across the back with the steel chair, creating a sickening thud and causing Hart to fall to the mat. Austin again swung the chair, waffling Hart across the back. Stone Cold punished the back of the Hitman and began to lock in torturous submission maneuvers. The action returned to the floor, where Hart reversed an Irish whip and sent Austin face first into a guardrail. This opened a nasty gash above the left eye of Austin, creating a dynamic visual to an already chaotic masterpiece. Like a shark, Hart attacked the cup, with Austin's face soon becoming a crimson mask. Hart jammed a steel chair repeatedly into the injured knee of Austin, whose puddles of blood had now stained the canvas. Austin was desperate, kicking Hart low before dropping to the mat from blood loss and exhaustion. He fought through it, stomping on the Hitman repeatedly before nailing him with a superplex. Austin grabbed an extension cord, wrapping it around Hart's neck on the ring apron. Hart reached for the ring bell, blindly swinging upwards and clobbering Austin to break the hold. In the middle of the ring, Hart locked Austin in a sharpshooter. The iconic visual of a bloody Austin attempting to power out of the hold would be replayed for decades and even printed on t-shirts. Shamrock screamed in Austin's ear, persistently asking if he wanted to give up. With blood squirting from his temple, Austin began to fade away. In a last-ditch effort, Austin powered out of the sharpshooter, albeit temporarily. Hart wrenched the sharpshooter back in. Austin faded away, passing out from the pain. Shamrock issued Austin one last warning to respond, but to no avail. The match was stopped, and Hart was awarded the victory. This match was able to accomplish a rare occurrence in the history of sports entertainment. Austin entered the match as the villain, with Hart as the company's longtime hero. The Chicago crowd made their decision, rallying behind Austin and turning Hart into the company's most hated villain. Following the bout, Hart continued stomping on a lifeless Austin. Shamrock intervened, throwing Hart aside like a rag doll. Hart left the ring to a chorus of boos, visibly frustrated. Austin eventually woke up, stunned an official, and hobbled away to a standing ovation. Despite losing to Vader at the Royal Rumble, The Undertaker was named the new #1 contender. He competed in the main event of Wrestlemania 13 against WWF champion Psycho Sid. The Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels provided commentary for the bout. Bret Hitman Hart made his way to the ring prior to the match, claiming that he should be the one getting the title shot. Sid responded by delivering a powerbomb to Hart. The Hitman would continue to interfere throughout the match. In the end, The Undertaker hit his signature tombstone on Sid, securing the victory. The Undertaker was now a two-time WWF champion. WWF Tag Team Champions Owen Hart and the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith began the year feuding with Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn. But all wasn't well for the team, beginning with Owen eliminating Davey in the Royal Rumble match. The two would face off in the finals of the WWF European Championship Tournament. This classic bout took place on the March 3rd Monday Night Raw, with the Bulldog becoming the inaugural champion. 3 weeks later, Owen and Davy's heat intensified as the two brawled with one another during a bout against the Headbangers. On the March 31st Raw is War, Bulldog would defend the European Championship against Owen. The action got heated, with Davy nearly clobbering Owen with a chair. In a shocking turn of events, Bret Hart interfered, tackling Davy to the mat. Bret would proceed to talk sense into the tag team champions, blaming the American fans for tearing their family apart. All three hugged, essentially forming a new era of the Hart Foundation. Later that broadcast, Stone Cold Steve Austin made it clear that he never submitted at WrestleMania 13 and was out for revenge. The main event featured Bret facing WWF Intercontinental Champion Rocky Maivia. Austin caused a disqualification, attacking the Hitman. The following week, Austin confronted WWF President Gorilla Monsoon, demanding a rematch against Bret. That rematch would take place at the April 20th In Your House Revenge of the Taker. The match nearly didn't occur, with the Hart Foundation attacking Austin backstage earlier in the evening. Come main event time, Gorilla Monsoon declared that Owen and Davy would be banned from ringside. Austin made it to the ring, laying a beating on the Hitman. To add insult to injury, Austin locked in a sharpshooter on Bret in the middle of the ring. Owen and Davy ran in to cause a disqualification, continuing the feud with Austin. The following night's Raw is War is considered one of the best in company history. Austin made his way to the ring, demanding a street fight with Bret. After no response, Austin made his way to the Hart Foundation locker room. With the door locked, Austin attempted to break in, to no avail. The street fight eventually occurred, with Owen and Davy aiding Bret in pulverizing Austin. The Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels rushed to the ring, wielding a steel chair. HBK would chase off Owen and Davy, leaving Austin all alone with Bret. Austin laid into Bret with a steel chair, eventually locking him into a sharpshooter. Officials had to pry Austin off the wounded Bret, who would be taken out on a stretcher. An angry WWF President Gorilla Monsoon proceeded to kick Austin out of the building. Bret was loaded into an ambulance, with Owen and Davy wishing him luck. But the ambulance wasn't driving away. Austin emerged from the driver's seat, attacking a helpless Bret. Owen and Davy Boy fought off Austin, while Bret was rushed away. Despite his act of defiance, Austin was named the #1 contender to the Undertaker's WWF Championship. Unable to celebrate the news, Austin fell victim to an Owen and Davy beatdown. HBK ran in with a chair and chased off Owen and Davy. This left Austin alone in the ring. From the crowd came Brian Pillman, all healed up. Pillman annihilated Austin, clenching the revenge he was seeking for months. HBK would eventually run in to make the save, ending a legendary episode of Raw. On the following Raw is War, Pillman led a prayer alongside Owen and Davy. The prayers were to wish Bret a speedy recovery. As the crowd groaned, Austin snuck in from the crowd, swinging a baseball bat, ending the prayer session. Bret would make an appearance later, delivering a promo from a wheelchair atop the stage. His warning was directed at Austin, saying his days were numbered. Later in the broadcast, British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith challenged WWF Champion The Undertaker. Owen Hart would interfere in the match, attacking Taker to cause a disqualification. Stone Cold Steve Austin ran in to run off WWF Tag Team Champions Owen and Davey before delivering a stunner to The Undertaker. Austin posed with the championship before receiving a chokeslam from an angry Undertaker. Viewing from the stage in his wheelchair was Bret Hart. After recovering, Austin realized Bret was all alone and made a beeline for him. Before Austin could cause any damage, he was attacked from behind by the returning Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Bret then broke one of his crutches across the back of Austin, knocking him off the stage and to the concrete floor below. The Hart Foundation was stronger than ever, appearing together on the May 5th Raw is War. The main event that night featured the Bulldog facing Stone Cold Steve Austin. Owen Hart and the Anvil interfered, leading to a 3-on-1 beatdown on Austin. The Legion of Doom made their way to the ring to even the odds. The Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels joined in on the chaos, followed by WWF Champion The Undertaker. Taker and Austin brawled, ultimately leading to officials pulling them apart. The main event of the May 11th In Your House, A Cold Day in Hell featured WWF Champion The Undertaker defending his title against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Sitting in the front row were all 5 members of the Hart Foundation. It wouldn't take long before Austin pulled Owen Hart over the guardrail and began brawling with him. Amidst the chaos, Brian Pillman rang the ring bell. This left Austin confused, leaving him prone for a tombstone. The Undertaker was victorious, but received the prize of a Hart Foundation beatdown. Bret was left alone in his wheelchair, and Austin was fully aware. Austin attacked Hart and stole one of his crutches. Wielding the crutch, Austin ran off the remaining 4 members of the Hart Foundation. In one last measure, Austin delivered a stunner to The Undertaker. WWF Intercontinental Champion Hunter Hearst Helmsley and the Bizarre One Goldust began the year embroiled in a bitter feud. They fought at the Royal Rumble, with Helmsley accompanied by his new bodyguard, Mr. Hughes. Luck would be on Helmsley's side, as he narrowly escaped with the victory. That luck would run out on the February 13th Thursday Raw Thursday. Rocky Maivia would dethrone Helmsley, becoming the new WWF Intercontinental Champion. 3 days later, at In Your House Final 4, Helmsley would receive a rematch. Goldust and Marlena came to ringside, ultimately costing Helmsley the match. Meanwhile, a muscle-bound woman clad in black snatched Marlena from the guardrail and shook her around mercilessly. The following night on Raw is War, Helmsley and Goldust would jawjack back and forth, while the mysterious woman once again attacked Marlena. Later in the show, Helmsley squared off against Bart Gunn. Before the bout, Helmsley claimed to have no idea who the mystery woman was. Regardless, Goldust would chase Helmsley off into the crowd, costing him the match. By the March 10th Raw is War, we knew Helmsley was lying. The mystery woman's name was Chyna, and she was Helmsley's new bodyguard. Together, they attacked Goldust. Marlena would attack Chyna from behind, jumping on her back and causing a wild scene. All this was enough to be added to the card at WrestleMania 13. Tensions were high, leading to yet another attack on Marlena by Chyna. In the end, Helmsley hit the pedigree to score a win over Goldust. A rematch would take place on the March 31st Raw is War, ultimately ending in a disqualification. Post-bout, Helmsley would brawl with Pat Patterson, while Goldust had a stare-down with Chyna. This feud would culminate on the April 28th Raw is War. Marlena got involved, throwing powder at Chyna. Blindly, Chyna grabbed Helmsley by the throat and hoisted him high in the air. Helmsley would run away, with Goldust winning by countout. On the debut episode of Shotgun Saturday Night, Ahmed Johnson got his hands on Nation of Domination member Crush. Ultimately, an unnamed Nation member, the future D'Lo Brown, would cause a disqualification attacking Johnson. Johnson overpowered the Nation member, dragging him all the way to the parking lot. In a wild scene, Ahmed delivered a Pearl River plunge to the Nation member atop a parked car. This was all en route to the Royal Rumble, where Johnson finally got revenge on Farouk in a one-on-one match. Nation members would cause a disqualification, with Farouk cowering away. Johnson got a hold of a Nation member, delivering a Pearl River plunge on him through a table. Later in the Rumble match, Farouk was eliminated by a 2x4 wielding Ahmed Johnson. Despite this, the Nation was growing stronger. On the January 25th Shotgun Saturday Night, Rocky Maivia squared off with Savio Vega. Shockingly, the Nation of Domination attacked Maivia. Vega joined in on the beatdown and subsequently joined the Nation. 2 days later on Raw is War, Ahmed Johnson faced Crush. Farouk interfered, distracting Johnson and allowing Crush to hit his signature heart punch. Crush emerged victorious, and the Nation were riding high. On the February 22nd Shotgun Saturday Night, Crush defeated the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith with help from Savio Vega. Vega held the Bulldog's leg down, allowing Crush to score the pinfall. All of this happened in front of Clarence Mason, Bulldog's manager. Bulldog would go on to fire Mason, who in turn joined the Nation. The February 24th Monday Night Raw saw the return of the Legion of Doom. That weekend on Shotgun Saturday Night, LOD stated that they wanted to compete in their hometown of Chicago at WrestleMania 13. On the March 10th Raw is War, Ahmed Johnson revealed that LOD would join him in a 6-man tag street fight against the Nation of Domination at WrestleMania 13. On the road to WrestleMania, the Nation orchestrated an attack on Ahmed Johnson. Farouk and company attacked Johnson with 2x4s and leather straps. The Pearl River powerhouse was left covered in welts and bruises. The following night on Raw is War, Crush and Savio Vega faced the Legion of Doom. Ultimately, LOD were outnumbered by the Nation, and injured Johnson ran to their aid, wielding a 2x4 to clear the ring. The Ahmed Johnson and the Legion of Doom versus the Nation of Domination street fight at WrestleMania 13 was wilder beyond expectations. They used it all, from trash cans to chairs and even the kitchen sink. Johnson body slammed Farouk through a table, going on to pin Crush for the victory. The brawling continued, with LOD getting their hands on PG-13, the nation's rappers, and delivering 2 doomsday devices. The feud between Ahmed Johnson and the Nation of Domination continued. At In Your House, A Cold Day in Hell, Johnson ran the gauntlet against the Nation. First up was Crush, who Johnson defeated. Next up was Savio Vega, who purposely got disqualified for attacking Johnson with a chair. This left Farouk, who hit his signature Dominator on Johnson and picked up the win. Things looked back on track for the Nation. Following WrestleMania 13, Paul Bearer continued making The Undertaker's life a living hell. It all began when Mankind claimed that he couldn't find Paul Bearer and feared the worst. On the March 31st Raw is War, Bearer stood in the ring with a casket at ringside. WWF Champion The Undertaker came to ringside and locked the casket for good measure. Taker proceeded to pound on Bearer until Mankind emerged from under the ring. By the time Taker realized this, Mankind threw a fireball into his face. This led to a match between Taker and Mankind on the April 20th In Your House Revenge of the Taker. The champion was ruthless, annihilating Mankind. In a horrific spot, Taker knocked Mankind off the apron with the steel steps. Mankind crashed through the broadcast table head first. Ultimately, Taker picked up the victory after a tombstone. Following the bout, Taker got his hands on Bearer, throwing a fireball in his face. Mankind brought out a heavily bandaged Bearer on the May 12th Raw is War. Bearer made a shocking claim that he had an incriminating secret about The Undertaker. However, he'd keep quiet if The Undertaker joined him. On the May 12th Raw is War, the Legion of Doom destroyed PG-13, with the Nation disowning them. Farouk would later announce his intentions to become the first ever African-American WWF champion. To do that, he'd have to defeat the current champion, The Undertaker. Following 2 weeks of consideration, time was up for The Undertaker. On the May 26th Raw is War, Bearer began to reveal that there were 3 graves. Before he could reveal any more, The Undertaker emerged from the entrance. It was then that he pledged his allegiance to Paul Bearer. On the May 19th Raw is War, Nation member Crush faced Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a King of the Ring qualifier. Savio Vega attempted to lend a hand to his fellow Nation member, but only made matters worse. Vega accidentally hit Crush, costing him the match against Helmsley. Crush snapped and attacked Vega, with Farouk pulling them apart. Savio Vega had an opportunity to qualify for the King of the Ring. His opponent was Mankind, an unlikely king indeed. Crush made his way to ringside, attempting to help Vega. Ironically, Crush wound up costing Vega the shot, with Mankind advancing in the tournament. Vega and Crush would brawl, signaling the crumbling of the Nation. Days before the King of the Ring, Farouk squared off with Ahmed Johnson on the June 2nd Raw is War. WWF Champion The Undertaker made his way to ringside. Naturally, the dead man got involved, accidentally knocking Johnson out. Farouk would pick up a victory, giving him steam heading into the King of the Ring. Taker and Johnson stared at one another until the champion delivered a chokeslam. Farouk received his title shot on June 8th at the King of the Ring. Nation members Crush and Savio Vega argued at ringside, distracting Farouk. This allowed The Undertaker to hit a tombstone and secure the victory. Paul Bearer demanded that Undertaker continue the beatdown on Farouk. Reluctantly, Taker delivered 3 chokeslams on the leader of the nation. Shockingly, Ahmed Johnson raced to the ring and delivered a Pearl River plunge to Taker. The following night, Farouk fired Crush, Vega, and Clarence Mason from the nation. Surprisingly, the only person Farouk kept was D'Lo Brown. On the June 16th Raw is War, Farouk introduced a new member to the nation, Kama Mustafa. Farouk and Kama would go on to defeat WWF Champion The Undertaker and Ahmed Johnson. Following the bout, Johnson turned on The Undertaker. What he did next shocked everyone. Johnson joined Farouk and the Nation of Domination. Vince McMahon interviewed the Nation on the June 23rd Raw is War. They were interrupted by Crush and 3 other superstars, all riding motorcycles. Crush introduced us to the Disciples of Apocalypse, Skull, 8-Ball, and Chains. The DOA went on to brawl with the Nation, leading to a huge pull-apart brawl involving officials and the police. The following week, Savio Vega introduced the Nation to his new faction, Los Boricuas, featuring Miguel Perez, Jesus Castillo, and Jose Estrada Jr. Los Boricuas brawled with the Nation, with the DOA eventually joining the fray. A complete melee ensued. The faction war was in full swing on the July 14th Raw is War. Los Boricuas stole DOA's bikes, tied Crush's bike to their car, and dragged it away. 2 weeks later, Los Boricuas interrupted a match between Farouk and Crush. Again, a huge brawl ensued involving the 3 factions. The DOA had their opportunity at revenge at Summerslam, facing Los Boricuas. The Nation would get involved, with Ahmed Johnson delivering a Pearl River plunge to Chains on the floor. Los Boricuas were victorious, but they wouldn't have time to celebrate. Mayhem ensued as the 3 factions brawled. The Nation turned on Ahmed Johnson the night after SummerSlam. This left a spot open within the group, which would be filled on the August 11th Raw is War. During a bout between Farouk and Chains, Rocky Maivia interfered. Maivia hadn't been seen since the April 28th Raw is War, where he lost the Intercontinental Championship to Owen Hart. Shockingly, Maivia attacked Chains, showing a new attitude, and joined the Nation. The Nation appeared in full force on the August 18th Raw is War, demanding an interview with JR. Farouk began by explaining that he kicked Ahmed Johnson out of the Nation for being a weak link. Maivia then spoke, mentioning the chant, "Die Rocky Die." After giving his body and being polite to everyone, he heard chants of "Rocky sucks." He went on to call the DOA racist, and the Nation would beat respect into them. DOA appeared on the Titantron from the parking lot, revving their motorcycles. They challenged the Nation to meet them for a brawl. In the parking lot, the Nation and the DOA collided. As chaos ensued, Los Boricuas snuck in and stole the DOA's motorcycles. The heads of the three factions squared off on September 7th at In Your House Ground Zero, with Farouk, Crush, and Savio Vega competing in a triple threat match. In the end, Crush hit Farouk with the Hart Punch. Vega snuck in from behind and hit Crush with a spinning heel kick to secure the victory. Despite a victory over Farouk at the King of the Ring, WWF Champion The Undertaker was in no mood to celebrate. He remained under the control of Paul Bearer, who kept threatening to reveal his secret. Things came to a head on the June 23rd Raw is War. Taker was forced to team with Vader, facing Nation of Domination members Farouk and D'Lo Brown. As expected, Taker and Vader couldn't get along, ultimately losing the bout. Taker would go on to tombstone Vader, leading to Bearer shouting that he's revealing the secret next week. On the June 30th Raw is War, Bearer told Taker's shocking secret. Bearer revealed that he used to be a mortician under the tutelage of The Undertaker's father. Bearer continued by saying that The Undertaker was a troubled child. Even more shocking was that Taker had a younger brother, Kane. One day, Taker set his father's funeral home on fire. Inside were his parents and Kane, none of which survived. In a chilling scene, Bearer screamed that The Undertaker is a murderer. Backstage, Taker revealed that Bearer's claims were true. He went on to say that it was all an accident. That same night, Taker attacked Vader and Bearer. Before Taker could cause any more damage, Bearer screamed into the microphone that Kane is alive. With all secrets known, Taker defended his championship against Vader at the July 6th In Your House Canadian Stampede. Fueled by anger, Taker pummeled Vader. Taker picked up the victory and settled his feud with Vader. Still, Taker was an emotional wreck. Bearer didn't help matters on the July 21st Raw is War. He unveiled half of a statue, and he knew Taker owned the other half. The statue in Bearer's hand belonged to Kane. The May 19th Raw is War began with Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels arguing in the ring. Both had the same goal: get their hands on the Hart Foundation. WWF Tag Team Champions the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith and Owen Hart appeared on the Titantron. They challenged Austin and Michaels to a title match next week. This didn't work for either Austin or Michaels, who argued that they'd each find their own partners. The two stubborn bulls came to blows, leading to a pull-apart brawl. In the main event, Austin fought Jim the Anvil Neidhart. The Hart Foundation got involved, leading to a disqualification. Michaels ran in swinging a chair, running off the foundation. An angry Austin attacked Michaels, leading to another pull-apart brawl. WWF President Gorilla Monsoon forced Austin and Michaels to team on the May 26th Raw is War. The Legion of Doom took the opportunity to ask them for a future title shot, assuming they'd win tonight. LOD would go on to face the Anvil and Brian Pillman. The British Bulldog and Owen Hart ran in to aid their fellow Hart Foundation members, causing a disqualification. Austin and Michaels ran in to even the odds, and then brawled with each other. Despite not being on the same page, Austin and Michaels went into battle against the champions. The bout was memorable, keeping the fans excited for the duration of the match. In the end, Michaels knocked out Davey Boy with sweet chin music. Austin covered him and got the 3 count to win the WWF Tag Team Championships for he and Michaels. The Hart Foundation ran in and beat down Michaels. Once again, Bret Hart was left alone on the stage. Austin rushed the stage, attacking Bret and re-injuring his leg. The Hart Foundation was in full force on the June 2nd Raw is War. Appearing in the ring, Bret Hart hobbled around on crutches. He broke the news that he'd be unable to compete at the King of the Ring. Appearing on the screen were WWF Tag Team Champions Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. With Michaels angry at Austin for costing him his match with Hart at the King of the Ring, Brian Pillman proposed that they face each other. Austin liked the idea, saying he'd face his originally scheduled opponent, Pillman, the night after the King of the Ring. Later, HBK also agreed to the match with Austin. Later in the broadcast, HBK and Austin were forced to defend their championships against the Legion of Doom. The champions couldn't coexist, brawling with each other and getting counted out. The night before the King of the Ring, Austin had to deal with another problem in the form of Brian Pillman. The two brawled, with officials pulling them apart. Prior to the King of the Ring, Austin interrupted an interview being conducted with Pillman. Austin attacked Pillman, throwing him into a bathroom stall and shoving his face into a toilet. The Hart Foundation appeared at the King of the Ring for an in-ring interview. Bret Hart said he'd be cleared to wrestle for the July 6th In Your House Canadian Stampede. He challenged any 5 American superstars to face all 5 members of the Hart Foundation in the main event. Later in the show, Austin and HBK faced off. The two fought to a stalemate, with neither man gaining a clear advantage. After Austin delivered a stunner to a referee and HBK delivered sweet chin music to another, the bout was declared a double disqualification. Austin was scheduled to face Pillman the night after the King of the Ring on Raw is War. While making his entrance, Austin was attacked from behind by the Bulldog, the Anvil, and Owen Hart. Mankind ran out to make the save and substituted for an injured Austin to face Pillman. Officials escorted Austin to the back as Pillman and Mankind pulverized each other. Mankind applied the mandible claw on Pillman, which brought out the rest of the Hart Foundation to cause a disqualification. Austin hobbled to the ring, only to be passed up by Ken Shamrock. A brawl ensued, with the Hart Foundation ultimately retreating. Austin was left in the ring with Shamrock, who he eventually delivered a stunner to. Austin appeared in the ring on the following week's Raw is War demanding to be interviewed by Vince McMahon. He was interrupted on the Titantron by Mankind. He addressed the issue of HBK refusing to defend the WWF Tag Team Championship. Mankind offered to be Austin's partner. Ken Shamrock interrupted, calling Austin a bully and challenging him to a match. Austin said he's already scheduled to face Brian Pillman tonight, with the Bulldog, the Anvil, and Owen handcuffed to each ring post. Later in the show, that match took place, with Austin holding his own despite being outnumbered. Pillman's nose was busted open by Austin, with blood pouring down his face. The referee attempted to hold Austin back, with Austin attacking him. With the referee down, Pillman hit a low blow on Austin. Pillman then slid a pair of brass knuckles over his fist and punched Austin. Meanwhile, Owen stole the handcuff key from the unconscious referee and freed himself, the Bulldog, and the Anvil. The 4 members of the Hart Foundation stomped on Austin. Mankind, Goldust, and Shamrock ran in for the save. Austin confronted Shamrock, who took him down with a belly-to-belly suplex. The Legion of Doom ran in to break up the brawl. Goldust grabbed a microphone and attempted to be the voice of reason, saying Austin and Shamrock are falling for the Hart Foundation's plan. Goldust said standing before him are 4 other men, Austin, Shamrock, and the Legion of Doom. They could easily face the Hart Foundation at Canadian Stampede. Austin agreed to team with them for only one night. Austin faced the Anvil in the main event of the June 30th Raw is War. Backstage, a healed Bret Hart brutally attacked Shamrock. Bret then made his way to the ring and attacked Austin to cause a disqualification. Attacking the knee, Bret slapped a figure 4 on Austin around the ring post. Mankind ran to Austin's aid, applying the mandible claw to Bret. The rest of the Hart Foundation attacked Mankind to end the show. Normally, the Hart Foundation were the most hated villains amongst the United States fans. However, at the July 6th In Your House Canadian Stampede, they were greeted with one of the loudest pops in company history. Prior to competing in the main event, the Hart Foundation were interviewed by Doc Hendricks in their locker room. Stone Cold Steve Austin attempted to attack them, but officials held him back. Austin joined Ken Shamrock, Goldust, and the Legion of Doom, who were vehemently booed. One by one, the Hart Foundation were introduced, with each introduction louder than the last. Bret presented his sunglasses to his mother Helen, who sat in the front row amongst the sea of Hart family members. All 10 men's eyes were locked on someone from the opposing team in an awe-inspiring stare-down. Bret and Austin began the match slugging it out, with the Hitman receiving a deafening ovation as he stomped on Stone Cold. The fans continued to be partial, cheering loudly for Hart Foundation members when they had the advantage, and booing Team USA when they took over. As the match progressed, Austin shifted his focus to Owen Hart, attacking his knee. From the crowd, Bruce Hart threw a beverage at Austin, with Austin clobbering him with a flurry of forearms. Officials escorted Owen to the backstage area, making the odds uneven. Bret retaliated, attacking Austin's knee by bashing it up against the ring post. Bret then used a fire extinguisher to bash Austin's knee before locking in a figure 4 around the ring post. The match continued and eventually saw Austin apply the sharpshooter to Bret. Owen made a miraculous comeback, running back to the ring and saving his brother. Bret tagged Owen in, but Austin put a beat down on him. As Austin walked past the Hart family, Bruce once again provoked him. Never one to shy away from controversy, Austin attacked the patriarch of the Hart family, Stu Hart. Several family members hopped the guardrail, with Bret ultimately throwing Austin back into the ring. A bewildered Austin was quickly rolled up by Owen, who scored the pinfall victory. The brawling continued, with more Hart family members rushing the ring. Officials and security scurried to break the riot apart. As Team USA was escorted backstage, Austin stuck around and attacked the Hart Foundation with a chair. He was quickly subdued and beaten down by the Hart family. Officials pulled Austin away, where he was handcuffed by security. As he was escorted up the ramp, Austin flashed his middle fingers to the crowd. Back in the ring, the Harts celebrated a huge victory, with the family filling the ring. It was a joyous scene to close out a must-see moment in company history. The following night on Raw is War, Bret the Hitman Hart opened the show by coming to the ring for an interview with Vince McMahon. Bret praised his home country of Canada, stating that he's proud to be a hero. He also promised that he'd defeat WWF Champion The Undertaker, his opponent at Summerslam. The Hitman said that if he lost to The Undertaker, he'd never wrestle on American soil again. Bret went on to introduce WWF Intercontinental Champion Owen Hart and European Champion the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. The three members of the Hart Foundation stood proudly as the Canadian national anthem blared through the speakers. In the ultimate sign of disrespect, Stone Cold Steve Austin interrupted the national anthem and assaulted all three from behind with a chair. For weeks, Mankind lobbied to be Stone Cold Steve Austin's tag team partner. He ran around sporting an Austin 316 shirt and a sign around his neck that read "Pick Me Steve." On the July 7th Raw is War, Austin took on Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Mankind got involved, with Helmsley clobbering him over the head with a chair. Helmsley turned around, right into a Stone Cold Stunner, with Austin picking up the victory. Following the match, Austin said that if Mankind wants to be his partner, all he had to do is shake his hand. Mankind took it a step further, extending his arms and hugging Austin. Predictably, Austin followed that with a stunner, reminding Mankind, "Don't trust anybody." As Austin left, Mankind grabbed the microphone and said all he was looking for was respect. He went on to say that he was going to do something drastic next week, and nothing would ever be the same. Vince McMahon interviewed Austin later in the show. Austin discussed his match with WWF Intercontinental Champion Owen Hart at SummerSlam, saying he'll kiss his ass if he can't kick it. On the July 14th Raw is War, the Hart Foundation opened the show in the ring for an interview with Vince McMahon. All 5 members revealed their stipulations for their own respective matches at SummerSlam, with Owen confirming that he'd face Austin in the first ever Kiss My Ass match. The remaining members revealed their stipulations. Bret reiterated his stipulation. The Bulldog said he'd eat a can of dog food if he couldn't beat Ken Shamrock. Brian Pillman said he'd wrestle in a dress if he couldn't defeat Goldust. And Jim the Anvil Neidhart said he'd shave his prized goatee if any member of the Hart Foundation lost at SummerSlam. The interview continued, with Bret putting down the American fans. Stone Cold Steve Austin interrupted, later to be joined by Ken Shamrock, The Patriot, Psycho Sid, and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. The American flag waved on the Titantron as the show went to a commercial. Later in the broadcast, Austin came to the ring to defend the WWF Tag Team titles against Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. Outnumbered, Austin didn't stand a chance. That is until Dude Love made his entrance. It was clearly Mankind in a tie-dye shirt and white boots, dancing his way to the ring. Austin delivered a stunner to the Bulldog, and Dude made the cover to pick up the victory. Austin and Dude Love became the new WWF Tag Team Champions. Dude handed one of the titles back to Austin. Two Dude Love groupies ran into the ring and began to run their hands all over him. Austin handed Dude back the title and shook his hand. Dude and the groupies danced together to end the show. Raw is War was back in Canada on July 21st. Bret, Owen, and the Bulldog had issued a challenge to any three American wrestlers to face them in a flag match. They appeared for an in-ring interview with Vince McMahon, with the Canadian fans going wild. Bret would go on to run down American fans and wrestlers, riling up the already raucous crowd. Austin interrupted and said he'd be part of the American team in the flag match tonight. Prior to the bout, Bret demanded that the Canadian national anthem be played. The crowd sang the anthem proudly. Austin came to the ring, backed by fellow tag team partner Dude Love. Minutes after the match began, WWF champion The Undertaker joined Team USA. The bout was wild, and the crowd reacted to every second of it, creating an interesting dynamic. In the end, Bret and The Undertaker climbed their respective corners to claim their country's flag. Brian Pillman interfered, pulling on Undertaker's leg and preventing him from climbing any higher to retrieve the American flag. This allowed Bret to pull down the Canadian flag, giving the Hart Foundation the victory. Once the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, began appearing on WWF TV, he soon became the target of several superstars. Billy Gunn called out Shamrock on the March 17th Raw is War. Shamrock made him a believer, making Gunn tap in an ankle lock. On the April 7th Raw is War, Shamrock defeated mixed martial artist Vernon White in an exhibition match via referee stoppage. Following the bout, JR interviewed Shamrock until they were interrupted by Vader. Officials quickly got between the two, who were more than ready to fight. Footage aired on the April 21st Raw is War of Vader appearing on a talk show in Kuwait. The reporter asked him the one question you should never ask a professional wrestler: is wrestling fake? Vader grabbed the reporter by the tie and said, "Does this feel fake to you?" Vader was arrested and detained in the country for several days while Shamrock waited for him in the States. He'd return the following week, bullying JR during an interview and apologizing for none of his actions. Shamrock came to JR's aid and challenged Vader to face him at In Your House, A Cold Day in Hell. That bout took place on May 11th and was a no-holds-barred match. Shamrock's strikes were as vicious as they were brutal. Vader was reckless as well, throwing wild punches and suplexing Shamrock over the ropes and to the floor. Looking to end the match in epic fashion, Vader soared through the air with a Vadersault. Shamrock barely moved and locked on the ankle lock to make Vader tap for a submission victory. The chance for independent wrestling promotion, Extreme Championship Wrestling, couldn't be ignored on the February 17th Monday Night Raw. Jerry the King Lawler confiscated a pro ECW sign. He referred to the company as extremely crappy wrestling. Lawler went on to challenge the ECW wrestlers to come to next week's Raw broadcast. Later in the show, ECW owner Paul Heyman called in during a match between Owen Hart and Flash Funk. Heyman accepted Lawler's challenge and said ECW would be on next week's Raw. The following week, ECW invaded Raw with several matches featured throughout the show. Stevie Richards of the Blue World Order defeated Little Guido of the Full-Blooded Italians. Taz defeated Mikey Whipwreck, featuring a cameo by Sabu, who fell off the Raw entrance onto Team Taz. And Tommy Dreamer defeated Devon Dudley. Lawler mocked the ECW wrestlers all night, spouting disparaging remarks on commentary. Paul Heyman had enough, attacking Lawler, leading to a pull-apart brawl. The March 10th Monday Night Raw featured a bout between WWF Tag Team Champions Owen Hart and the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith facing the New Blackjacks. During the bout, ECW's Taz appeared split screen, threatening Lawler not to disparage ECW any further. Lawler didn't take the threat seriously, leading to Taz marching to the ring. The two got in a confrontation, with Sabu making his way to the ring and leaping over the ropes. Lawler and Taz moved, with Sabu crashing through a table. Later in the broadcast, Lawler and Heyman participated in a debate. Heyman came to the ring accompanied by a slew of ECW wrestlers. JR moderated the debate, which got out of control quickly. Lawler mocked ECW, saying that it didn't deserve to be seen on this grand of a stage. Heyman defended ECW and put over how hard his locker room worked. He went on to promote ECW's first pay-per-view, Barely Legal. Tommy Dreamer, the Sandman, the Dudley Boys, and the Eliminators got in Lawler's face, with the King retreating. Lawler wouldn't fire another shot at ECW until the May 12th Raw is War. He introduced his latest associate, ECW's Mr. Monday Night, Rob Van Dam. Lawler claimed that RVD was the only true talent in ECW. RVD bashed ECW, calling it a promotion full of wannabes. RVD went on to compete against enhancement talent Jeff Hardy. The The two had a competitive bout, with RVD picking up a win after a split-legged moonsault. The following week on Raw is War, Lawler claimed that Paul Heyman took legal action against him, meaning RVD could no longer compete on WWF television. RVD returned on the June 9th Raw is War, appearing in a backstage promo with Jerry the King Lawler. Lawler threatened ECW if they tried to interfere in RVD's match tonight. RVD made his entrance with Lawler by his side. Heyman and Tommy Dreamer were seated in the front row and were irate at the sight of the anti-ECW contingency. RVD went on to face Flash Funk in an entertaining, high-flying bout. The match ended with RVD hitting a split-legged moonsault onto Funk for the victory. Heyman and Dreamer hopped the guardrail and attacked Lawler and RVD, leading to a huge pull-apart brawl at ringside. On the following week's Raw is War, Too Sexy Brian Christopher faced ECW's Chris Candido. Heyman appeared on commentary, continuing to promote his wrestlers. He added fuel to the fire, revealing that Brian Christopher was actually Jerry Lawler's son. Lawler marched to the ring and attacked Candido to cause a disqualification. RVD ran in to aid in the beatdown. Tommy Dreamer interfered with a chair to clear the ring. Later in the broadcast, RVD and Lawler faced the Headbangers in the first round of the WWF Tag Team Championship Tournament. Seething from the crowd were Heyman and Dreamer. With the referee distracted, the Sandman ran in through the crowd and hit Lawler below the belt with a Singapore cane. This allowed the Headbangers to pick up the victory. RVD jumped the guardrail and brawled with Sandman and Dreamer. A riled-up Heyman held his wrestlers back, with officials escorting RVD to the locker room. Sabu appeared on Raw is War the following week, facing Flash Funk. Heyman appeared on commentary to hype Sabu as the most dangerous man in wrestling. Sabu wasted no time setting up a table at ringside. The match featured a display of high-risk maneuvers, dazzling the crowd. Ultimately, the bout ended in a double disqualification. After 3 attempts, Sabu dropped a leg drop off the top rope on Flash Funk through a table. The entire ECW storyline quietly disappeared shortly after. Beginning on the May 19th Raw is War, JR conducted a 4-part interview segment with Mankind. JR went in-depth, talking with Mankind about his childhood. Mankind admitted that he was always an outcast. He discussed splitting his lip open on the playground in elementary school and how he first fell in love with the sight of blood. It was the first time that he'd realized he wanted to become a professional wrestler. Mankind discussed being bullied on the playground, with children throwing worms at him. Their attempts to hurt his pride were unsuccessful as he ate one of the worms. In the second part of the interview, Mankind discussed hitchhiking to Madison Square Garden in 1983 to see Superfly Jimmy Snuka versus Don Morocco inside of a steel cage. Mankind was inspired and wanted to see people show their emotions to him. In high school, he made a movie with his friends where he played a wrestler named Dude Love. Dude was the ultimate chick magnet that oozed charisma. In the film, Dude climbed to the roof of his friend's house and hit a splash all the way down onto mattresses below. After that, the real-life Mick Foley began his professional wrestling training under the tutelage of Dominic DeNucci. In the third part of the interview, Foley discussed his character, Cactus Jack. After refusing to tame down his style in the United States, he traveled to Japan and competed in barbed wire matches. He said, "Mrs. Foley's little boy is finally home." Footage was shown of Cactus Jack competing in death matches for IWA Japan with the likes of Terry Funk. He showed off all his scars, referring to them as a roadmap on his body. On the final installment of the interview, Mankind admitted his frustration in Vince McMahon for not signing him to a contract when he was young. He also discussed his infatuation with Shawn Michaels and how he always wanted to be cool like him. JR asked Mankind when he was going to take responsibility for himself and his actions. This angered Mankind, who accused JR of telling lies about him on commentary. Mankind said he feels pain, just like anybody else. All JR has done is mislead people into thinking he loves pain. Mankind attacked JR and locked in the mandible claw. After the damage was done, Mankind begged for somebody to help JR. The King of the Ring took place on June 8th, pitting Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Mankind in the finals of the tournament. Mankind risked his own body to pulverize Helmsley. Chyna stood in Helmsley's corner, getting cheap shots in on Mankind throughout the bout. Helmsley ripped Mankind's mask off and rammed him headfirst into the steel steps. The two climbed onto the American broadcast table, with Helmsley delivering a pedigree to Mankind through it. The referee held Helmsley back as Mankind crawled his battered body onto the apron. Chyna grabbed the royal scepter and smashed it over Mankind's back. Helmsley sealed the deal with a second pedigree to score the pinfall and become the 1997 King of the Ring. Following the bout, Chyna bullied Todd Pettengill. Pettengill handed Helmsley the crown, which he subsequently smashed over Mankind's head. The following night on Raw is War, Vince McMahon interviewed Helmsley and Chyna in the ring. Helmsley got in McMahon's face and said that he should have won the tournament last year. Instead, he claimed McMahon's politics held him back, but not anymore. Helmsley declared the ring as his home. Mankind appeared on the Titantron, wanting a rematch against Helmsley. Chyna told Mankind to come to the ring and kiss her ass. Mankind said it was her lucky day because he's a good kisser. He rushed to the ring, with Helmsley again clobbering him with the crown. As Helmsley and Chyna exited, Mankind wore the broken crown on his head. Mankind faced Brian Pillman on the June 30th Raw is War. Prior to the bout, Mankind apologized to JR for attacking him during their interview. He presented JR with a replica mandible claw. Pillman attacked Mankind from behind and shoved the claw in Mankind's face. The brawling continued, with Helmsley and Chyna viewing the madness from the top of the ramp. Pillman clobbered Mankind in the face with the ring bell behind the referee's back. From there, Pillman attacked what remained of Mankind's mangled ear. Helmsley made his way to ringside as Chyna distracted the referee. Pillman held Mankind up while Helmsley swung a chair. Mankind moved, with the chair striking Pillman. Mankind grabbed the chair and stalked Helmsley and Chyna all the way up the ramp. Meanwhile, the referee counted Mankind out, giving Pillman the victory. Mankind and Helmsley opened the July 6th In Your House Canadian Stampede. The action was intense, with Helmsley quickly trying to escape. Mankind got a hold of him and suplexed him on the steel entrance ramp. Chyna once again played a role in this match, interfering to save Helmsley from defeat. She even power slammed Mankind, ankle first, onto the steel steps. Helmsley clobbered Mankind's injured ankle with a chair behind the referee's back. The numbers game was too much for Mankind, who took a beating from both Helmsley and Chyna. The brawling went into the crowd, with the referee counting both men out. They brawled throughout the arena, with Chyna and a slew of officials following. Cameras caught up with the brawl a bit later, which had gone out into the parking lot. Helmsley dragged Mankind onto a stack of pallets and attempted a pedigree. Mankind reversed it and backdropped Helmsley onto the pallets. Officials broke the two apart, with blood streaming down Helmsley's face. Helmsley was scheduled to square off with Vader on the July 28th Raw is War. Standing in the path of Vader was Chyna, who was looking for a fight. Back in the ring, the cameraman attacked Helmsley and then revealed himself to be Mankind. Chyna ran into the ring and tackled Mankind to the mat, pounding on him with a flurry of punches. Mankind regained the advantage and brawled with Helmsley through the crowd. Opening Summerslam on August 3rd was Mankind vs. Helmsley in a steel cage match. While the cage was meant to prevent Chyna from interfering, it failed to serve its purpose. Chyna would reach through the cage bars to choke Mankind on one occasion. On another occasion, she climbed the cage and delivered a low blow to Mankind, who was attempting to climb over. This allowed Helmsley to climb up and suplex Mankind off the top of the cage into the mat below. Helmsley repeatedly bounced Mankind's head off the cage. The seemingly indestructible Mankind regained the advantage and bounced Helmsley off the steel cage. Mankind tried to escape through the door, but Chyna shoved the referee out of the way. She then slammed the door on Mankind's cranium with a sickening thud. Chyna then climbed up the cage and threw a chair into the ring. As Chyna hung from the cage for a better view, Helmsley attempted to hit a pedigree on Mankind onto the chair. Mankind reversed it and slingshotted Helmsley into the cage wall, knocking Chyna to the floor. Mankind hit a double-arm DDT on Helmsley onto the chair. This allowed Mankind to climb up the cage, but he stopped before hitting the floor. Standing atop the cage, Mankind ripped his shirt and heaved his body all the way down to the mat onto Helmsley. Chyna tried dragging a lifeless Helmsley through the cage door. She wasn't quick enough, as Mankind climbed over the top of the cage and to the floor for the victory. Lying on the floor, Dude Love's music began to play. Mankind began to tap his foot and then rose to his feet, dancing away up the aisle. At the September 20th one-night-only pay-per-view, Helmsley faced Dude Love. Instead of the brawling we'd seen in Helmsley's feud with Mankind, this was a more scientific match with Dude Love. Chyna attacked Dude multiple times behind the referee's back. After several more disruptions, Helmsley was able to gain a decisive advantage and hit a pedigree to pick up a victory. The September 22nd Raw is War emanated from Madison Square Garden. Helmsley and Dude Love were scheduled to face off in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Dude appeared on the Titantron and said that this type of match wasn't fit for him. He introduced Mankind, appearing in a chair next to him. Mankind claimed that he knew somebody that would do even worse things to Helmsley than him. Enter Cactus Jack, who came to the ring carrying a trash can. Helmsley felt the aluminum across his head. Cactus then hit a swinging neckbreaker on Helmsley on the concrete floor. Chyna interfered, clotheslining Cactus over the guardrail. Helmsley and Cactus then brawled backstage, going for several pin attempts. Cactus sprayed Helmsley with a fire extinguisher and then whipped him into a guardrail. After briefly returning to the ring, the brawl returned to the ramp. Chyna blasted Cactus over the head with a steel chair. Cactus shook it off and got in Chyna's face. Helmsley hit the back of Cactus, which sent him crashing into Chyna. She was crushed into the steel steps, knocking her out. Helmsley back suplexed Cactus onto the steel ramp, and then clobbered him with an arsenal of foreign objects. Helmsley set a table up on the stage and attempted to pedigree Cactus Jack. Cactus hit a low blow, and then hit a pile driver on Helmsley through the table to score a pinfall victory. Join us next time when Squared Circle History presents the WWF in 1997, Part 2.